take the glasses off the top of my head. I might need them.
Yeah.
Maurice Sines is a really unlucky guy, isn't he? And I mean...
Well, is it luck or is it something else, you might say?
He's an unlucky guy.
Is he?
Okay, here he is, and he owns this watch store selling luxury watches, yeah?
Yeah.
And the watch store is robbed to the tune of 1.1 million euro worth of...
Well, it's sterling, actually. Pounds. That you don't like. You always like to point out that I get wrong.
I do. 1.1 million pounds would be what, about 1.4 million euro?
Yeah.
More? Yeah, 1.4 million euro. So the stock from the shop that he owns is robbed. And
I mean, the ownership is kind of...
Is it complex?
Well, it's in dispute. And so this was actually a very high profile robbery. 4 people were involved, it is alleged, in this heist. It was set up that somebody would come in and look at these watches. They're, Rolexes or whatever they are.
To supposedly buy them, like when you go in and you get your glass of champagne and you are shown the products.
And a whole series of products were brought out. And then somebody came in and a gang came in and they were stolen. And the very tragic outcome, the watch salesman, was ultimately took his own life in the aftermath of it.
Under pressure, like, from the whole thing happening. And
certainly, and police said it was a direct result of the heist. So the case has come to court. One of the men, a man, has already been convicted, but 3 other guys are before the courts in charge with this robbery. And during the trial, their defence counsel has put it forward that the true owner of this shop is a guy called Maurice Sines, who will be an old, well, maybe not friend of the podcast, but certainly somebody who's appeared on the podcast a number of times. And one of the guys being defended, his counsel suggested to the jury that the shop was actually a front for money laundering owned behind the scenes by mobile home park magnate Maurice Sines and his son Fred Sines Jr., both of whom used the surname Doe. And
Fred Sines Jr., we spoke about him only a couple of months ago or thereabouts, because he got caught up in a certain golden toilet.
Yeah, another very high profile heist, I suppose. Is it infamous? I think it is infamous now. It was a toilet made of gold, an artwork that was being showed at the Blenheim Palace.
Yes.
And it was stolen and ultimately melted down. So these guys are on trial, and we hear the ownership of the business. It's described as an unusual business with no shop front and only advertised on social media. So obviously they're dealing with these hugely expensive watches. We know they were worth over £1 million. But, the guys on trial, their counsel are disputing the whole circumstances of it, I suppose. And they're saying that the real owner of this business was Maurice Sines, and that they describe it as being a front for organised crime. Now, obviously, Maurice Sines is well known to people who listen to this podcast because of his long connections with Liam Byrne and Thomas Bomber Kavanagh and other members of the Kinahan cartel, in particular members of the Byrne organised crime group.
He crops up initially in this kind of race-fixing investigation along with his business partner James Crickmore many decades ago now, and they both end up with a ban from the UK race courses. Now, it was in and around the same sort of time that you'd have had a lot of criminal organised crime groups looking at this race fixing. Carry on, I've written about it a lot myself. But, the horses can be pulled to lose. You can be guaranteed a horse will lose if you pull it back, and which is why horse racing is so particularly good for these sort of race fixing scams and operations. You can't guarantee a horse is going to win, even if it is the favourite, as we all know.
Because everybody wants the horse to win.
But they were involved in that, and they were also they owned these big, huge sites in the UK which are kind of retirement villages, actually, even though they're mobile home sites. They're very high quality mobile homes. People downsize into them, and there's like a community living in them. But they have been accused of, bullying certain people that are living on them, and there's been really controversy after controversy around them.
Got in a fight with Elton John.
I was going to say Sines also got in a fight with Elton John because
not a physical fight.
No, he was putting in planning permission for one of these sort of mobile home sites in this neighbourhood, which wouldn't have been too happy with having to share their surrounds with a mobile home site, and it was a planning row actually he got involved with Elton John. But he's one of these kind of characters that has been floating around, and he wouldn't really have come onto our radar until all of a sudden we start seeing him not only hanging out with Liam Byrne and Thomas Bomber Kavanagh, but they are literally practically at one another's homes for Christmas.
Yeah.
This is a really tight relationship they have. Sines is over for the christening of Liam Byrne's last child, and this is all pre-Regency, pre-2016. When the Byrne brothers are showing a lot of bling, a lot of wealth around 2014, and they're around in Dublin, they're driving these incredibly eye-wateringly expensive cars. And of course, they're all traced back to the ownership of Maurice Sines, who seems to be giving them to them on loan. There's a lot of content on social media between them all out enjoying themselves at occasions. And then David Byrne is murdered in the Regency, and at the Byrne house in Raleigh Square, where Sadie and her late husband Jaws are holding court, and the body of David Byrne there's a wake on. This is for very close family and friends, and shoulder to shoulder with Thomas Bomber Kavanagh comes Maurice Sines.
Yeah, and if he's, it's a very graded sort of funeral service in that the more important people are at the front. Obviously, the famous pictures of Daniel and Bomber Kavanagh and Freddie Thompson, but right beside them is Maurice Sines. Very stands out because big guy but shaven head, and of course in the aftermath of the David Byrne's death, there's a number of people visit Raleigh Square, and Maurice Sines is one of them. And of course, he has a property interest in the area anyway, having at least been, buying one of the homes or attempting to buy one.
The Criminal Assets Bureau discovered that in the aftermath because, of course, they went in and raided the Byrnes and a lot of their associates' homes in the March of 2016. And there was a house a couple of doors down from Liam Byrne's and Simone McEnroe, his partners. They had actually built theirs without planning, but they had doubled the size of the house. They'd taken the whole back garden and built this huge big extension, which included a bar and a jacuzzi and all this. And the roof of it was a kind of a play area. And there was a house about 2 doors down that was replicating it. It had been bought, and the plans, it was starting to be built. And it was discovered that the owner of that house was Maurice Sines.
Yeah.
Now, Liam Byrne leaves Ireland in 2016 after that cab raid, and I suppose in fear for his life, this Kinahan Hutch feud has broken out, and he wants out of the country. He's also probably afraid, not only for his life, but that he's going to be lifted by the Gardaí, who are focusing on his grouping. And he moves to Tamworth near Birmingham, and he moves into a very nice red brick property. We sent over and got photographs of him watering the flowers in the front garden in a very suburban way. And that home is owned by Maurice Sines.
Yeah.
Byrne also puts in to a company, he registers an address, and it's one of Maurice Sines's mobile home addresses. And on it goes. And their connection is so strong and so tight that all of a sudden Maurice Sines becomes extremely interesting to us.
Yeah, and of course ultimately the Criminal Assets Bureau sees a huge amount of property and other assets from members of the Byrne organised crime group, and in the evidence that they give in court, they describe Maurice Sines as being suspected of being involved in money laundering and being a very close associate of both Kavanagh and Byrne. Now, in this court case, we hear, it's a very it actually was a huge story even at the time because of the scale of it. But you do hear some of the evidence, and obviously Maurice Sines isn't on trial for it. But it is suggested in court that Maurice Sines, that the police would know who he is. We also hear how following the robbery, these three guys are arrested. Their names are Kyle Mehmet, Junior Kanu, and Michael Holmes. And they were issued with a threat to life warning by the police after they were arrested. And the notice stated, following the robbery at 247 Kettles, which is the name of the jewellery store, a substantial bounty was placed on those suspects who are responsible. As a result of your suspected involvement in this offence, it has come to police attention that you may be at risk of serious harm due to the above. And then later on during the trial, the police...
Are they making an allegation or a suggestion there that the three robbers maybe bit off more than they could chew when they went in? Or
I think that is what is being said. And, it's being suggested now, not that
Sines was in the background.
Well, I mean, Sines allegedly in the background, and but obviously then there's other parts of it. The police are questioned at some point by the defence, saying, "Is it not your?" They're discussing the business, how it is with no shop front or whatever, and it says it is not your usual high-end jewellery shop. Is it a front for money laundering? Did you investigate that? And the police officer says, no, it was not part of the investigation. And then it comes back. So despite Mr. Sines being a money launderer, you did not investigate the shop being a front for money laundering. And DC, the detective constable, says it was not seen as a relevant line of inquiry. And then it goes in again. But we do know that the footage went missing of their meeting on May the 26th. And, the
CCTV, you mean?
CCTV went missing. And so it was agreed. The court also heard Fred Sines declined to make a witness statement to the police in regards...
Fred the son or Maurice?
Well, both of them are discussed. But Fred Doe. So the court, the court case goes on, but it is a fascinating piece of evidence.
Like he just keeps kind of coming up in stories in which appear random, but actually there's always something kind of in the background. Do you remember the story we had about him that he was he caught doing it with some driving offence?
It was a driving offence in his roles because, I mean, you can Google him and you'll see him standing with 10 Rolls Royces or whatever. And, I mean, massively wealthy man. But this case was, he was being chased by the police. I think he was leaving a golf club, and the police went to pull him over, and he drove on, and eventually they caught him. But it was suggested, he had told them that he had a driver, he wasn't driving, and he was having sex with a woman in the back of the car, and that's why he didn't stop, and he didn't want...
embarrassed.
He was embarrassed. But I think in the end, ultimately, it was decided he just didn't want to stop for the police.
Look, we'll follow this case because any of this evidence, of course, is and it's quite extraordinary that, the Criminal Assets Bureau here in an affidavit to the courts in 2018 said that Maurice Sines was under investigation for money laundering in the UK.
Yeah.
And these things just roll on for years and decades. People get old and weary.
Yeah.
Like us.
Yeah, like us. Definitely.
Right. Well, look, Maurice Sines, we shall return to this gentleman soon. I'm Nicola Tallant and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.